Hey everybody, it is Jordy from Seven Eagle Group. I am so fired up for today's podcast. We met a few weeks ago through a mutual friend, and man, I have been impressed by this guy. A little bit about him. After graduating from the Citadel, he went on to a 21-year distinguished career in the United States Air Force, serving in the top levels of financial management on a deployment to Iraq, at the Pentagon, later at the White House. His skill sets, his business acumen, his leadership qualities earned him a selection to the rank of colonel. But he decided to retire and move on to Knoxville, Tennessee. And after a 5-year stint as the CEO in charge of a $5 billion company called TAG Resources, they're the largest 401k retirement account provider in the U.S. He decided to start his own gig and found Veteran Venture Capital out of Knoxville. And his firm is absolutely crushing it. Currently, their portfolio consists of about 11 veteran-owned companies providing cutting-edge technologies, robotics, drones, blockchain, esports, and video surveillance. And this guy not only kicks ass in the boardroom, but he holds 2 master's degrees and is at Taekwondo in black belt to boot. So, Derren Burrell, thank you so much today for taking some time to share your amazing story with our audience of transitioning service members, vets, and employers who are eager to add some top talent to their team. So, thanks for being on with me. I appreciate it.
Hey, Jordy, this is great. I appreciate it. Heck of an opening. One clarifying remark. I was COO of that tag resources here in Knoxville, but it was a great leadership learning experience when I transitioned to the private sector. I learned a lot about how the military principles that I employed for over 2 decades are so applicable to the private sector in terms of structure, organization,
Yeah.
discipline, things like SOPs that the military is known for, but that are somewhat challenging in small businesses. That's where I think the power of a veteran comes in. So yeah, like I said, super excited to be here. Love what you guys are doing, and happy to be a part of it. Tell you a little bit about what we're doing and how the paths seem to intersect so well.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Well, so let's start at the beginning. I want to know where you grew up. What got you to decide, hey, I'm going to the Citadel, that's for me, and then why later the Air Force? What brought you down that path?
Oh, well, that's great. Yeah, so I was born in Charleston, South Carolina. So raised up in the top of the state in Greenville. But my dad was a heavy influencer on me joining both the Citadel and the Air Force because he did both. He was a graduate 30 years prior to me from the Citadel, and then uh, and then he joined the Air Force following graduation. He stayed in for about 5 years. So I decided to follow his path, and then kind of went back down to Charleston to my roots. Graduated from there and decided. I don't know. Some of your listeners are probably too young, but we were hitting another recession. That was under Bush one, and they said, hey, job market's terrible. You can still be an officer in the Air Force. I said, oh, why not? And then I was a business major and wanted to do the finance thing. So I said, can the Air Force do that for me? And they did. And so I did. So I really spent about 28, 29 years in this sector, just 21 in the public side of the house. But I loved it. We had great times. Moved about 10 times in the 21 years that I was in. Met my bride on my first duty station in Minot, North Dakota. So guy from Charleston, South Carolina, going to North Dakota.
Didn't
That
know
was
it
a
hit him.
change for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was great career, and I just kept. I love what I do in terms of managing money, and now the veteran component, putting my 2 passions together is. It's just I wake up every day pretty excited to see what kind of innovation the
Yeah.
veteran brings to the table and how we can help them scale.
That's awesome. What brought on your love of finance? Like when did you know that was something you wanted to do for a career? Was that at the Citadel? Was that prior?
Well, it's pretty funny that you said that. So Uh, I went to the Air Force field training, which is kind of like your boot camp for officers before you go in for the Air Force. And and really, this is the first time I think I've told this over the airwaves, but I was doing jet orientation, which means you get to fly, small little T-38, and and I did that, and I got sick as a dog on the plane. Couldn't take it. And
Give me the calculator.
out of it and said, all right, get me in front of 'em. I can fly that. That's what I'm gonna do. And so I like to say that I didn't fly the airplanes in the Air Force. I just paid for them and
Favorite. Yeah, right.
do it because I don't think my stomach could have handled being a pilot. Not that I may have qualified, I don't know, but
Oh my gosh.
that's really the reason why is I've always enjoyed kind of putting together things and building things and actually putting together the numbers to make things happen. So it was great to fund the mission at every base that we went around because you get to
Yeah.
learn all the intricacies on how we fly, fight, and win. And so I've always enjoyed that about learning things because we have to defend those budgetary requirements up the chain all the way through to Congress. And so, you kind of learn a little bit about everything if you're paying for it. And so that's kind of the
I mean, I
rationale
was
behind it, what
looking
I
at
do.
I was looking at some of the budgets that you managed and the millions and billions of money, the amount of money that is spent and that you were responsible for and making sure it's allocated the right ways. I mean, I cannot imagine the pressure that was under. You can't
Well,
screw up any of those decimal points.
yeah, there may have been a lot of responsibility there, but it's all done like General Crystal has a great book about team of teams.
Yeah,
It's all part of the team, right? I had great people, solid NCOs and airmen that really made my career. If I
yeah.
was to say that that was probably the key is I always had great teams. They helped me and then I took care of them. And it was just, that's the way you kind of advanced in the military is just this camaraderie and unit cohesion that you have. And now we built that into Veteran Ventures Capital too. It's a great team. It's not a solo gig. There's five of us in the partnership and we coalesce together to get the mission
Yeah.
accomplished, right? It's about getting things done. And so it's
How
all about
did
teams.
when you look back on your time in the Air Force, what are some of your best experiences, and then what are some of the best character traits or the you know all the lessons that you learned? How did that prepared you now for this post military career path that you're on?
Yeah, so the military is a proving ground for leadership. Most people would agree with that, right? You learn a lot, but there are certain jobs and certain responsibilities. I can say that one of the most fulfilling and challenging was as a squadron commander. I commanded a finance and a comptroller squadron in Italy for 3 years, and really garnered the intricacies of taking care of folks and learning how to build those teams. It was a challenging time, really hard work from the squadron and the teammates that I had there. But every job came with a set of challenges. I went from there to manage an extremely large budget across all of the Air Combat Command bases. I think there was 12 of them at the time, maybe 16. And then from there, I was deployed right for to Iraq and Afghanistan for a year, which is completely different. We helped train the Iraqis and the Afghanis on how to manage their budgets for their defense. That's one of the reasons I was there was coalition building. And that's just learning to work with other people with even in different languages and different nationalities, all of these things, that you have to figure out a way to get things done, right?
Yeah,
So it's all about execution. And then from there, I went straight to the White House. So each one of these jobs, from when I was lieutenant all the way up to lieutenant colonel, is it was building blocks, and I kept on learning more, how to make sure that if you take care of your boss or your boss's boss, then things are usually pretty good for you, right?
yeah,
All of these, the interpersonal skills, and then finding out that where to go in order to get whatever your boss needs to get those things to happen. That was instrumental in making my military career a success. But then when I transitioned to the private sector, well, that number one, that desire to get things done, that desire to be part of a team and to build something bigger than yourselves, that doesn't change when we take off the uniform, right?
Yeah.
It's actually amplified because you had it for so long. You're craving the ability to continue to build and to grow and to strengthen wherever you're at. And so that's really what I did when I transitioned to the private sector as well.
Hmm.
Um, but when I found out, through the job at Tag Resources, when I this company was scaling, it was growing, it doubled in size, tripled their assets under management in just a few short years, largely due to the military principles that I was telling you about. That just the ability to make decisions in a time constrained environment, the discipline of just keeping at it and getting things done, and just all these things that served me well and were serving me there. Well, I had to raise 2 million in equity for them. That's how fast they were growing.
Wow.
And when I did that, I found out, man, veteran businesses, they have a tough time getting access to capital. In fact, I didn't know at the time, but they're 30% less likely to receive venture capital, even though statistically they out earn their non-veteran counterparts. So I saw a couple things here. I saw that number one, veterans bring a lot to the table. And number two, there's an opportunity here because they actually are undervalued, which means you can get in at a reasonable valuation if you invest
Yeah.
in them, and then you can scale them quicker to a liquidity event. So you're looking at this arbitrage of an investment opportunity. So that's what led me to start Veteran Ventures Capital. Got together with a group of folks, mostly veterans, and raised a fund, and used those same principles. We have basically a checklist mentality of making sure that we do what we can for these portfolio companies, and I'll tell you about that too. But it's essentially, we know how the defense side of the house works. We know how businesses work. We pair those up with a veteran business owner, and it spells success in return. And I think that's something that you can rinse and repeat over and over again.
Oh, I love how like you started this business, but you're still serving the community of military veterans and helping
Right.
these guys, as you mentioned, who struggle to get their businesses off the ground financially, but have that drive, that grit, that
That's right.
toughness that makes them a good investment for your firm. So I'm just a huge fan of what you're doing for the community. I think that is absolutely awesome. While we're on that subject, can you talk a little bit about some of your firms? I know it's like you have 11 children, so you can't say who your favorite is, but are there some that might be more interesting, some that might be an interesting story to tell everyone about what these guys are
Yeah.
doing?
Well, our the evolution of the fund, we've been investing now for just a little over almost 3 years, I should say. And again, we've got about 12 companies in the portfolio right now. And again, so we have migrated into a focus of this security and defense focus. So the areas that we see the most excitement are those that we can help out the most, right? We're not passive capital. We don't just say, "Here's your money, go away." It's kind of like, okay, is this a good business opportunity? And then where can we add value? And it comes down to a couple of different areas. One is we're really good at finding other sources of capital for them to complete their raise. If a
Mhm.
company is needing $5 million, and let's say we invest 1 million at them, we can also help them garner what's called non-dilutive funding in the form of SBIR, Small Business
Yep.
Innovative Research contracts and grants, and other programs like that. So while we've invested a total of just under 7 million to date, we've garnered 17 million on top of that in non-dilutive funding. And that is important because the entrepreneur likes it, the entrepreneur likes it because they don't have to give away their company.
Right.
It's less equity that they have to give up. And two, the investors like it because we then get to supplement almost $3 to $1 of investment that we get from an investor is supplemented by the government, which allows extra runway, and allows us to diversify even more, and it de-risks that investment that much. So
Oh,
it's a
it's
win-win.
powerful. Yeah, powerful.
Yeah, and then the other thing is contracts themselves, right? We can get government contracts. Again, that's what I did when I was active. Another guy on the team did. We
Yeah,
know where the government's going to allocate resources, 5 years in advance. So you can tailor your deal flow if you know what the government's looking for to stress those particular areas. So again, we've got folks that love to do terms and conditions and deals and contract negotiations, all these things that don't come naturally out of
to the bit,
the
right.
military experience. But the part that does come out of the military experience is that getting things done mentality. You pair those two things up, it's got success written all over
And with your guys, your team's leadership and giving them guidance and mentorship, I'm sure that's so valuable to a startup. I know I benefited greatly from advice from people who just have more knowledge, and
it. Yeah.
and just give
Well,
you options. I love it.
yeah, and like you were saying, I don't, it's hard to pick a favorite. I would say that where we see the most activity on the governmental side is these, areas like space, and the cyber, autonomy, robotics, uh, the whole nature of C5ISR and AI, all these areas. But we've invested in some really good companies as of late. All of the portfolio, there's no one that's underperforming, if you will. There's some that are performing, and then there's some that are just excelling. But I love our satellite company, satellite propulsion company, Phase 4 out of California. They're doing some phenomenal things, and one of our partners, Steve Kaiser, has just really he did so much value for them and bringing them opportunities in the governmental side that they put him on the board and have helped.
That's
He's
great.
helped them grow.
Yeah,
Havenlock is a security-based company right here in Tennessee. It was
nice.
our first investment, probably our largest, at least in terms of ownership. And that company, so the great company, Army Special Forces CEO
Yeah,
that really learned a lot on how to secure and lock down buildings and worship centers and auditoriums, anything with a lot of doors associated with
George.
it.
Yeah,
Well, he learned in Iraq and Afghanistan, or Afghanistan, on how the Taliban were barricading doors at the bottom and the top of doors, as opposed to just a deadbolt. And that's what he's
huh,
done. He's taken that ability,
I
put
saw it.
that in, that experience, and again, what are we looking at in the U.S. right now? It's a tremendous, unfortunate scenario of these active shooter
Yeah,
incidents, right? This solves that problem.
with
And
those doors.
unfortunately, his business is going well. His business is going extremely well, and he's the answer for that. And so I
For
think
that.
that's another company that is exciting, and making some huge inwaves now, because people are starting to realize that we need to secure our schools, secure our churches, secure
Yep.
our gathering spaces in a much better manner. And he's got the answer.
The
That's a
answer.
great one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love all of our
No,
companies.
no,
I
I
don't have
know.
time to go through them all, but
You know
they're
what?
they're
You know
great.
why you guys are doing such important work is you're not only giving these 12 companies, I don't want to say a fighting chance, but you're putting the odds in their favor. But as they're growing, I'm I'm sure they're going to be the ones to hire more military talent. They know what it takes to grow and to so everybody's going to win with veteran ventures, and that's what I love. And if anyone listening who is intrigued by what Derren is saying, please reach out to him. He's on LinkedIn, and his webpage. It's just veteranventures.com. Sorry.
US. No,
Yeah.
dot US.
.us. I'm sorry. Reach out
Yeah.
to him, and you guys can have a discussion. Can we? A lot of our viewers want to go down this entrepreneurial path. We're going to switch gears for a sec. What can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you've faced? You left. You had this incredible opportunity to stay in the military. I'm sure that was really challenging for you to say, "Hey, I'm going to leave and pass up this promotion." But you jumped into the deep end, had a lot of success at tag, and then you said, "Wait, I could do this. I'm doing this on my own," and that's scary, it's not an easy path. And can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced and how you've overcome or how you're overcoming them?
Yeah, great question. I got to tell you, there's an inherent desire, I think, in the heart of most veterans to just build and to see something come to fruition. They don't take no for an answer, and that just helps them have that drive and desire, both in the military. Like you said, it was a hard decision to get out. I loved what I do. I miss it every now and then, um, but the opportunities again, this is where we felt called to be, and so that's what we've done. When I decided to go out on my own, again, it was based on experience. I saw the opportunity, and it's and so when I decided to go full time on Veteran Ventures Capital, it was a super challenge. I went full time and started raising a fund in the midst of COVID. So I think it was January is when I started in 2020, and then the March is when the world shut down, right?
Good timing.
Um, yeah, so I don't know how much you know about fundraising. I know more than I ever thought I would, because on a first time fund, the basic way that people are investing with you, because you don't have the same track record as some of the more established ones, is it's based face to face, it's trust, it's shaking the hand. I couldn't do any of that, right? And so it was a challenge to get through it. But I think that's another reason, something that I learned is we have the ability as veterans to pivot, to get to the end game by any means necessary. I guess within the confines of integrity and excellence. And so yeah, that's when I got the right people to join. I got the right people to help us. Some of the bigger broker dealers out there that are just veteran owned, that had been there and established themselves, talked to some of the larger people in the space, got mentors, those things that helped spur me on. And then I just pitched, right? A lot of it is just getting out there and doing it. I went through probably close to, if I was to guess, I'd say 600 or more pitches in
Oh my
2020.
gosh. Wow.
And by far, uh, I don't know how many hundreds it was before I got my first, first yes.
Yeah.
So but that's what we do, right? We believe in something, that it's possible, and then you just grind it out. And I think that's one of, again, the tenacity that you have from serving your country and understanding that there's no second place on what we did on the battlefield, right? And
Yeah.
so we don't have that mentality when we are actually, trying to start that business. Um, and I would also say too that having the right people with you was something I learned later on. There, the the inherent trust that we have in the veteran population is well grounded, and sometimes that comes to hurt you in the private side, if you allow yourself to be taken advantage of. And so that's another thing I would caution on is make sure that you really vet the people that you want to work with. I
Yeah.
turned down a lot of money, um, because I did not feel like they were a good fit for the mission and vision of what we were doing here. And I think that's something that was hard to do at the time, but long term, it really increased the value of what we do, and how we can continue to build up Fund 2, Fund 3, and continue to build a larger opportunity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh, hell yeah, I love it. What the five guys who make up your team? Did you serve with any of them? Did you know them from prior interactions, or were they new, or who were the? How was
No,
the?
no, yeah, great question. So yeah, one of the first gentlemen that I brought with me, well, I guess the very first one was one of the guys that invested in me. His name is or invested in the fund, Paul Willard. He's out of Nashville. He had a distinguished career in corporate venture capital. So he had started up two corporate VCs, liked what we were doing, decided to invest. When I found out his background, I said, "Hey, you wanna join me?" And
Come
so I
on.
kind of roped him into it. And then after that, there were a couple of partners that have a 20-year relationship between the two of them and between us. One of them,
Right.
Josh Weed, he uh, he and I served together on the Pentagon almost 20 years ago. I guess over 20 years ago now. So when he decided to transition to the private sector earlier than I did, although he's still in the reserves, and he was very successful in the private side, culminating with a 750 million exit for a company where he was the chief operating officer. So
Wow.
he had some really good chops,
Yeah.
and loved what we were doing as well, and said, I want to join this. And he brought Steve Kaiser. Those two got PhDs together right before I met them, and so they're 20 years friends. So the majority of the group knows each other from a very long time ago. And Steve Kaiser, who had an awesome career in the Air Force as well, Intel based, really good in terms of his knowledge of the industries that the government is looking for, because he was paid to do that when he got out. And he brought his coworker alongside of him, Craig Jakes, and yeah, we've basically got a team that has really grown up together, and known each other for up to 20 years, and have been successful in each area, whether it was military, whether it was the private
Right.
side, whether it was corporate venture capital, deal flow, all of those due diligence and activities that really help us scale our businesses quicker than most. And so we're super excited about the team,
Yeah.
about the opportunity, and ready to continue to rock and roll.
You got some super smart guys there. Mamma mia.
Yeah, I know. When I
PhDs.
used to, you mentioned my two master's degrees, and I'm the dumb one of the group when they have PhDs out there. So I love it though.
Hey, that's awesome. What's talk briefly about what's next for Veteran Ventures? Where do you see yourself going? I assume you're going to stay on this path that you're on of massive growth and
Yeah.
finding more companies. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. The more we look at where the government is going to allocate resources, the more we see the value of the veteran and the veteran entrepreneur and the businesses that they run. And we're seeing again a shift, current world events, things that are going on, Ukraine and things like that. We see the a couple of demand signals that are going to translate into larger opportunities for us and
Yeah.
for our investors, right? So space, autonomy, quantum, C5ISR, AI, and material sciences. Those are the areas that we think are going to be key for us going forward. And so we typically look at companies that are a little, they got traction, close to $1 million in revenue is what the last several companies that we have invested in, that's their minimum. A lot of them have been much higher than that. And so that's kind of what we are looking for. Um, we are looking to continue to build. We've got uh, quite a bit of momentum going into what we think will be our next fundraise coming soon. And yeah, we see about 500 deals a year. So the opportunity,
Wow.
there's plenty of opportunity out there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of really trying to explain the value that these businesses that have been very underrepresented in the alternative capital space, they're starting to get noticed. There's a lot
Yeah.
more activity in the defense space over the last couple of years. So we think we're on the beginning of a really big opportunity. It's just the current economic environment is kind of forcing out a lot of you know, uh, the both early stage VCs as well as early stage companies. We're seeing a lot of challenges for those that we are supporting, and so that does lead to um, uh, I'll say, the valuations have come down quite significantly, and
Yeah.
we're continuing to see that. Long term, that goal is good though, right? Because they're going to continue to scale and build up as they garner the right, contracts and opportunities from the government side. That helps them build up, and the economic uncertainty that you see in the private side we really focus on dual use technologies, meaning it has a public use and a private use, so they can have two economic sources of revenue.
Revenue, yeah.
And that just really help them with economic perturbations that we're going through right now. Most of our companies are seeing high increases as opposed to contractions.
Yeah. Well, Derren, I wish you nothing but the best, man. You are an amazing champion for this community, and the work you're doing is truly going to move the needle on a lot of important issues for veteran-owned businesses and employees, and just bringing attention to this space. So again, if anyone is interested in investing in Derren's fund, please reach out to him, as well as if you have a business who you feel could benefit from Derren and his team over at veteranventures.us. There's the webpage for him, and connect to him on LinkedIn as well. Derren, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you taking some time to be with us today.
Jordy, I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing for the veterans that choose to partner with you, and for the great the education and awareness that you bring through this venue. Huge supporter, and so I look forward to continuing to partner in lots of different ways as we go forward
Thank you.
together. So thanks,
That means a lot. Those words. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching.
thanks.